Ladies and gentlemen, it is Medieval Matt here, and welcome to a long-awaited video. It's one I haven't put up a video for a very long time on YouTube, and so I wanted to take an opportunity to have a quick lesson on the construction of a medieval sword. That doesn't mean I'm making a medieval sword, but I want to talk about how a medieval sword is put together. Now, I'm standing in my armour because I have spent a significant portion of today filming Instagram, TikTok and various other videos, so that's why you get to see me in my glory in my armour today. So let's start off with a sword. Basically, throughout most of the Middle Ages, most swords were produced the same way. They had an iron blade or a steel blade, depending on the time periods. That would come down to a crossguard that was made out of some kind of metal, whether that be steel, iron, bronze, brass, those kinds of things. Then there would be a handle, then a pommel, which again is made out of some kind of metal. Usually it would be steel or bronze, and then sometimes you would find them plated with gold, and maybe sometimes put rubies or various other precious gems in there, though not for swords that were often used on the battlefield. And this is the basics of most medieval swords. Now you might be thinking to yourself, well, yeah, obviously that's what a sword looks like. But lots of people don't actually know how these swords are held together. Some people assume that the crossguard and the pommel and the handle are all somehow glued on, welded on, screwed on, something like this. And that's a good assumption to make, because if you were producing something today, you would use whatever methods are available to you in order to produce it. So if you were wanting to make a sword, you may decide to weld on the crossguard or pommel to hold it all together. There are some reasons you wouldn't do that, namely that welding it will affect just how well the blade works, and it can quite often put a stress in the blade which will make it crack. But also, it's not very cost effective when the medieval solution is cheap, easy to do, relatively simple to understand, and it makes tweaking your sword and fixing your sword later really quite easy. So let's go through that. Staying with this sword, what we can notice if we're looking very closely is that at the bottom of the pommel you can see this big lump of metal here. Now, this isn't a particularly pretty way of doing it, but what if I told you this bit of metal here was the same as this metal here? All of this is one piece. Let me show you how that works. This is one of my other swords. This is my main fighting sword. It's one of the few swords that I've given a name throughout my reenactment career. I call this one Bertha. And so, if you've been to one of my shows, especially if you've seen any of my school incursions, you would have seen Bertha quite a bit. But she doesn't look exactly the same because I've been spending a lot of time polishing her. And that's where the genius of medieval construction comes from. Remember that lump at the end of the other sword, here? Well, that is actually the same as this point here. This is the tip of the tang, which is where that comes from. So if we're looking at our sword, the construction is quite simple. You have a steel blade, which then is reshaped. Where the crossguard sits, it shrinks down and becomes this thinner part here, which is tapered down to the end, and this particular part here is what we call the tang. The tang then holds all of what we refer to the furniture of the sword. So the crossguard sits over the top like this and rests on the blade like this. The handle, which is made out of wood, so there is a wooden core in the center there, which that hole here is where the tang fits. Then there is a cord wrap over the outside and a leather wrap which is stitched on, if you can see it there, on top like that. So this handle then fits down over the tang. Now I've shortened this handle recently So it's not going to fit all the way down just yet because I need to make the hole inside slightly bigger because that tang is tapered down. So if we push that one down the top there, and then the pommel is what holds all of that together and it sits over the top. What we can see is that little tiny bit of tang sitting out of the top there. What I will do is I'm going to make the hole for the tang slightly bigger in the handle. Then I'm going to hammer all of this down and make it nice and tight. I'm going to heat up the tip here and then hammer that down, which is going to hold this sword together nice and tight for when I'm fighting. The genius of this design is, in order to pull Bertha apart, all I had to do was sand on the top here and pinch it until the tang was small enough for the pommel to slide off again. And in that way I was able to pull the pommel off, pull the handle off, pull the crossguard off, and have the swords nice and free, nice and loose, so it made it easier to use the machinery I use to polish my weapons. So there you have it, guys. That is the construction of a medieval sword. That's how most of them were made and held together. There are, of course, exceptions to this. If we look into different sword types, things like a mesa, you will find that it sometimes has a hidden tang, like the sword that I just showed you, and sometimes it has a slab-shaped handle, which is a different type of handle construction, and we can go through that another time. Until then though, guys, I hope you're enjoying yourselves in isolation. I hope this helps break some of the boredom. I'm going to be trying to make more content in order to help with the isolation, and especially to help with the kids who I would normally be seeing at school, or that I would be visiting your school in order to do an incursion. I'm going to try to produce some content so that I can keep you guys interested in history. Give us a thumbs up, hit like, subscribe, share, leave us a comment, all those things. And let me know what you would like to see in the future. Hopefully we'll have some more content for you very soon. This is Medieval Matt. Cheers guys, have a great time.